In this week, I will talk with you about the international efforts to conserve sea turtles. This section of our course will help you to understand what the international society is doing to rescue deteriorated biodiversity components around the globe. Among these components, the charismatic creatures, the sea turtles. We will talk about the main frameworks the world agreed to cooperate to conserve our declining biodiversity. I will present to you two groups of international and regional conventions and agreements that concern the protection of sea turtles and their habitats, in addition to one global scientific group of research. So we will talk today about the need for coordinated efforts for sea turtle conservation, the Convention on Migratory Species, CMS, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna, CITES Convention, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the ASEAN Memorandum of Understanding on Sea Turtle Conservation and Protection. And then we will talk about IUC, the Marine Turtle Memorandum of Understanding for the Indian Ocean region. But first, why do we need conventions and agreements among countries to conserve biodiversity? The conservation of the Earth biodiversity is a cooperative task, so there is no single country can protect properly species and habitats without cooperating with other neighboring countries or other more advanced countries. This is more evidence when the species in concern is a migratory species, a species that crosses borders of different countries during their life cycle. By working closely with other nations through diplomatic channels, capacity building, scientific research exchange, real help for sea turtle can be achieved. Therefore, early since the conservation work started in 1970s up to date, several conventions and agreements were signed by different countries. The first example of such frames is the Convention on Migratory Species, or Bonn Convention. It was a convention that signed in Bonn in Germany in 1974. It's entered into force in 1983. The CMS Convention coordinates efforts for the contracting states to protect migratory animal species. It includes 2 appendices, each contain list of species that would benefit from concerted conservation measures. Endangered species listed in Appendix 1 are fully protected. This includes all sea turtle species, with the exception of the endemic Australian flatback turtle. Member states within Appendix 1 species are to endeavor to conserve their habitats to counteract factors impeding the migration of species and to control other factors that might endanger these species. In general, parties to CMS Convention are obliged to prohibit the hunting, fishing, capturing, or harassing of these species, protected species. Malaysia is not yet a party to this convention, and we hope in the near future Malaysia will join the convention. The Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, CITES, is an international treaty developed in 1973. It regulates trade in certain wildlife species. The convention regulates international trade in animals and plants, whether they are died or alive, and they are recognizable parties or derivatives therefore. Appendix 1 lists threatened species, including all sea turtle species, in which international commercial trade is, with a few exceptions, prohibited. Appendix 2 of the CITES Convention lists species that may become threatened unless trade is controlled or regulated. In the Appendix 3, there are a list of species that any member state wishes to control trade of these species or should require international cooperation. International trade in Appendix 1 and 2 species operates by the way of permits issued on the basis of scientific findings that export, and in the case of Appendix 1 species, import also, will not be detrimental to the survival of species. So, if you want to export or import an animal or plant species, you should seek to get a CITES permit as a passport for your animal or plant species to cross points of entry, such as airports, ports, and national borders. Each country has its own national authority who works to implement CITES convention within that country and measures at points of entry in cooperation with other authorities, such as the customs and other authorities. The Convention on Biodiversity, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, is a global convention entered into force in 29 December 1993. It has three main objectives. The first objective is the conservation of biological diversity. The second is the sustainable use of the components of that biological diversity. And the third objective is the fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out from utilization of genetic resources. Although the Convention does not explicitly address the conservation of sea turtle by name, but indeed the CBD, the Convention on Biodiversity, contains no annexes of species to which the provisions are applied. However, it does provide a framework within which broader conservation objectives are pursued. Malaysia hosted the CBD 7th Conference of Parties in Kuala Lumpur in 2004. The other Memorandum of Understanding we are talking about today is the Memorandum of ASEAN Sea Turtle Conservation and Protection. This Memorandum of Understanding signed and entered into force in September 1997. The government of ASEAN member states agreed to promote the protection, the conservation, and replenishing recovery of sea turtles and their habitats based on the best available scientific evidence. This takes in account the environmental, socio-economic, and cultural characteristics of the parties. This agreement also urges parties, member states, to consider harmonizing their existing national laws and regulations and enact new laws on sea turtle conservation protection if it's not existing. Under the CMS Convention, there is a Memorandum of Understanding on the conservation and management of marine turtles and their habitats of the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asian region, the IUC Marine Turtle MOU. The member states of the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia region, among them Malaysia, are, as well as other concerned states, totaling 35 countries, through shared responsibility and working together to conserve and replenish depleted sea turtle populations through the collective implementing of associated conservation and management plan. The MOU applies to the waters and coastal states of Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia and adjacent seas, extending eastwards to the Torres Strait. For implementation purpose, the area is divided into 4 subregions: Southeast Asia and Australia, Northern Indian Ocean, Northwestern Indian Ocean, and Western Indian Ocean. Member states of this MOU committed to implement the MOU in their land territory, marine areas under their natural jurisdiction, and with respect of vessels operating under their flags. There are other regional conventions dealing with sea turtle conservation. So these regional levels to assure the best conservation of status of sea turtle and marine biodiversity in general. This includes the sea turtle species that we are talking about. These conventions are, for example, the Convention on Protection of Mediterranean Sea Against Pollution, the Convention on Conservation of European Wildlife and their habitats, known as Berne Convention, the Convention for the Protection and Development of the Marine Environment of the Wider Caribbean Region, or WICAST, the IUCN Species Survival Commission on Marine Turtle Species Group, MTSG. So we start with the Convention on the Protection of Mediterranean Sea Against Pollution, which is started in 1976, or called Barcelona Convention. It's entered into force in the 12th of February 1978. 20 member states in the Mediterranean region, plus the European Union, are members of this convention. It has a regional action plan for the conservation of sea turtles in the Mediterranean area, where each country listed its priorities and means of integration within the Mediterranean other countries in the region. The second convention we are talking about is the Convention on the Conservation of European Wildlife and Natural Habitats. It was adopted in 1979 in Bern, in Switzerland, and it's entered into force on the 1st of June 1982. It includes 36 European and African countries, plus the European Union. This convention monitors the implementation of conservation on the sea turtle as one of its components. The other convention is the Convention on Protection of Development of Marine Environment for the Wider Caribbean Region of 1983. It's also known as Cartagena Convention. It's entered into force on the 11th of October 1986, and it includes 21 member states. This convention supported by 3 additional technical agreements or protocols on oil spills, especially protected areas, and wildlife. And in addition to another protocol on land-based sources of marine pollution, or LBS. Finally, there's one committee, scientific committee called the IUCN Marine Turtle Specialist Group. And it is part of the Species Survival Commission of IUCN, which is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. This group is comprised of more than 230 experts, members from around 80 countries. This group is a global authority on marine turtle research and conservation. So it's a scientific consultative group. Marine Turtle Specialist Group envisions marine turtle fulfilling their ecological rules on a healthy planet where all peoples values and celebrate their continued survival. So the mission of Marine Turtle Specialist Group is to develop and support strategies and set priorities and provide tools that promote and guide conservation of marine turtles around the globe. The Marine Turtle Specialist Group is working on voluntary basis. So as a consultant body to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, in all matters related to conservation and strategies, research, and status of different sea turtle populations around the world. So after you finish this course and you still like to know more about sea turtles, come over to UMT and get hands-on experience on saving sea turtles at Chagarotang Turtle Sanctuary. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.